It's your boy John Michaels in for Z today. At John Michaels U is where you could give me a follow on social media. A lot of interaction there. This segment of the program brought to you by Bet Online. Appreciate them being part of the podcast network here. Again, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. Follow on all social media. Locked On ATL. Chuckery, Jarvis, and Tanitra. Mark Zinno do an unbelievable job breaking down what's going on locally. We spent some time this morning on the Locker Room on 680 The Fan, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10, with myself, Brian Finneran, Joe Hamilton, home team Brandon Leak, and Hudson Mason. Yes, it takes a village to do one radio show, but we've been going position group by position group and looking at the Falcons roster as we're now just, 3 weeks away from training camp, trying to figure out, is this team better situated in certain positions than they were potentially a year ago? The Falcons were historically bad last year rushing the passer. When I say historically bad, when these numbers popped out, I knew they were bad. I knew 18 was the number of sacks a year ago. But when I looked, and the next closest team, sack-wise, who had a bad year as far as getting the quarterback on the ground, was Philadelphia, at 29 sacks. You started to look at this Falcons team and go, how is that humanly possible that you only got the quarterback to the ground 18 times in a 17-game schedule? But that's exactly what they did. So we started looking, is this team better situated than they were a year ago? And you think about some of the guys that are gone. Dante Fowler, gone. Good effort. You kind of stole money. Let's call it what it is. Steven Means, gone. Guy that tried hard, obviously was sapped by an Achilles injury a couple of years ago. Good effort, good special teams guy. Not a guy you necessarily needed coming off the edge 45 or 50 times a game. John Kaminsky, a Thomas Dimitroff special. And TD was my guy, in fairness. I'm not going to badmouth him. I had a great relationship with Thomas in the time that he was here in Atlanta. But John Kaminsky, small school, we're going to try to show you we're smarter than everybody else. You went and got him. Didn't really pan out. Some other guys, James Vaughters. I think James Vaughters last year, one game was the NFC Defensive Player of the Week, if I'm not mistaken. It was just like one of those anomalies where he had this unbelievable game. He's no longer with the ball club. So how do you replace him? You go draft Ibikady out of Penn State, kid who has a lot of pass rushing capabilities. You go draft D'Angelo Malone, a kid out of Western Kentucky, again, that has the potential to go out and get the quarterback to the ground. You bring in a Lorenzo Carter, who's 5 sacks, I think in the last 5 games for the Giants, would have led the Falcons a year ago in sacks, which is one of the dumbest stats in the history of dumb stats when it comes to a ball club. The fact that 5 sacks would lead your ball club. Obviously, you re-up with Grady Jarrett. Love Grady as a person, but he's got to give me more than 1 sack than he gave us a year ago. You also are another year into Dean Pees' system, and Taquan Graham should maybe take a step. I think it's Vincent Taylor, a big fatty you'll plug in the middle. Anthony Rush, who I really liked a year ago, another guy that you can plug into the middle, maybe get him some more time. But you've got to find ways to affect the quarterback. I put an over-under poll up, again, at John Michaels U. I said, would you take the over or under right now when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons sack number? And I put 29.5. We'll dissect that in just a second. But a word from our sponsor, betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting needs. Maybe they'll have a prop in there. Over under 29.5 sacks for the Atlanta Falcons. I'd have to imagine the under is where you'd want to be. But betonline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. You want to head to the website right now. Check them out. betonline.net. Again, betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting needs. Maybe no surprise with what's going on in social media, but when I put that Twitter poll out, and I'm trying to check live exactly right now where we're at, Falcon fans, a lot of votes on this deal. 89% said they'd take the under of 29.5. I'll argue right now, though, the Falcons' defensive line this year is better than it was last year. Again, Lorenzo Carter in a prove-it contract-ish kind of year. He wants to come in, and he's a local kid, played college football at Georgia, wants to come in, get guys to the ground. You bring in Malone, and, I'm not even talking about Anderson, the young kid out of Montana. I'm talking about Malone, a pass rusher. You're bringing in other pieces that we talked about earlier on, guys that can maybe affect the quarterback. Ibikady, big defensive end. these guys, you'd have to think they stumble into 4 or 5 sacks. Really? 4 or 5 sacks, that's not exactly saying a whole lot when it comes to the NFL. There were players individually who had more sacks than the Atlanta Falcons did a year ago. And I think one of the things that can help them, and we were talking about this some this morning as well, A.J. Terrell is now starting to develop into a lockdown-ish kind of cornerback. You now add a Casey Hayward on the other side. You get a healthy Isaiah Oliver back, and that should be the 3 guys that you trot out there in the secondary on a normal basis. You hope Richie Grant plays better at the safety position, Eric Harris back another year. The reason I bring up defensive backs, Fabian Moreau, Kendall Sheffield, those were just not good football players. And you could line up and go, all right, Moreau's over here. He's given a cushion. Boom, I'm raising up and throwing the ball, and you have no chance to get a quarterback to the ground. I think this year especially with Hayward, you potentially can cover for a couple of seconds, instead of it, you needing to get to the quarterback in 1.5 seconds. Maybe now if you get there in 3 seconds, you have a chance for that to happen. Will they get to 29.5? That doesn't seem like an attainable number unless something really, really changes, especially when you look at the beginning of the schedule and you're playing really good quarterbacks. Here's some numbers I think I need. I need 6 sacks out of Grady Jarrett. 6. That's not asking a lot for a guy that you just gave a very nice extension to. He is capable of that, maybe with some help on the outside. I need Lorenzo Carter to give me 8. If you're a premier-ish, and I'm being very nice when I use premier, type edge rusher, you need to get me in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 sacks if you're Lorenzo Carter. So if that happens, 6 for Grady, 8 for Lorenzo right there, all of a sudden you're starting to look at 14. Malone, Ebiketie combined, give me 12. I don't care how that combination comes. 12. So 12, 6, and 8. That gets me to 26. The rest of the team should be able to come up with 4 sacks somehow. Fall into 4 sacks. What I don't want to hear this year, though, out of Dean Pease is I only put a percentage. 46% of my defense in. No. If these guys can't learn the defense, get their asses off the team. This is a rebuild year for the Falcons. I think we all know it. But I need to see incremental steps to make me think that next year I can maybe be a quarterback away from going out and getting the guys that I need. Take a break. When we get back, we're going to dive into what happened with the Atlanta Braves. The Mets, guess what? We're getting closer. Better watch yourself. It's coming up next here on A to Z on Locked On ATL.